What happened? Where the fuck am I?
Hello, Loudmouth. I'm here to claim my reward.
What the fuck you talking about? What reward?
You know what reward I'm talking about, mortal man. The patron reward to do a collaboration video with you.
No, you aren't a patron. And why the fuck would I abide by a request from someone who fucking abducted me?
Loudmouth, just do it! He's crazy!
Quiet, mortal man. I'm not crazy. I'm serious.
Zach? Was that Zach?
Yes, it was. I have taken possession of his body to continue the cause of libertarian ideals on Earth. Now let's do this collab, or I will go authoritarian on your ass as I commandeer your channel and take possession of your body too.
Alright, but next time let Zach do all the talking. If I had known it was you, you wouldn't have needed to abduct me and roast me in this fiery room. So, what will our collab be today?
Pew poll, libertarians don't know what libertarian means. They say even those who voted for Bush twice, and then both McCain and Romney, claim that they're not Republicans. No, we're not Republicans anymore. We're now libertarians.
One thing you gotta learn about one ideological group, Tom. They are not all one huge collectively minded monolith, alright? Some libertarians are going to vote for Gary Johnson because they think that Donald Trump is too much of a social authoritarian and plus just in protest of the two-party system. And some libertarians are going to vote for Donald Trump because Gary Johnson is too much of a pseudo-libertarian, a fake libertarian because he doesn't really believe in private property rights, at least not to this extent right here.
And right now,
should a Jewish baker be required to bake a Nazi wedding cake?
I think Muslims right now in this country, Muslims in this country would be banned by all sorts of businesses right now because it would be the popular thing to do.
So the Jewish baker should have to bake the cake for the Nazi wedding.
That would be my contention, yes.
I mean, let me ask you this question. All the Bernie bros who voted for Donald Trump, are they suddenly not liberals just because they voted for Donald Trump in protest against Hillary Clinton?
So, what's a libertarian? Well, only 11% knew the official definition, the definition that the Libertarian Party itself puts out.
Hold up. The Libertarian Party is not representative of all libertarian philosophy. That is stupid thought. That is like saying that the GOP is representative of all conservative ideology.
Which is that we are, a libertarian is someone whose political views emphasize individual freedom by limiting the role of government. Let me point out this is an oxymoron. You are not free if you are not educated.
Now that's a fucking retarded notion right there, you triangle-headed weasel.
Tell that to the freaking cavemen way back in the day when they had no government or any other type of third party ruling over them, yet they were about as dumb as the rocks that they used to try to strike a fire.
How educated you are and how free you are for the most part completely unrelated. Someone who was, for example, locked up in prison but had a great history of education or even got a great education while in prison still isn't very free while being locked up in prison. How free you are and how educated you are just don't really fit. That said, it's certainly good to be educated, obviously, but on this topic, it's a complete non sequitur.
Government provides free education.
For one thing, it's not free because it comes out of people's taxes. So instead, I'm having my money indirectly taken out of my wallet and put into the education rather than me directly putting my own money towards my own education. And you know what also provides education? Homeschooling moms and private schools.
If you can't read and write, you're not anywhere near as free as somebody who can.
Yes, arguably, a person with a better education and ability to articulate their own ideas and beliefs will have a better ability to defend their own freedom against tyranny than some dumb fuck. But just because some rocket scientist who lived in the mid-20th century and in the USSR has a better education doesn't mean that they were any freer than the backwater hillbilly who lived in the United States at the time. In fact, the hillbilly was more free than the rocket scientist.
So the whole libertarian mantra right from the get-go is an oxymoron.
Not an oxymoron, as I just explained.
It makes no sense. It's cover for we want to be free, we billionaires want to be free to pollute the air with our factories.
Oh, cut the demonization and the smears. That's real weaselly and unsubstantive of you if that is all that you have, Tom. And besides that, climate change debates aside, why would you trust the federal government, which turns out to be the #1 worst polluter on Earth, to do the deed of restricting people's liberties so that they don't pollute, when they turn out to be actually a worse polluter than the private sector that you want restricted?
We want to be free to exploit our workers.
Allow me to rephrase that for you and your condescending ass. We want to be free to run our businesses in any way that does not impede on other people's rights. That being like employee wages, for example. So get rid of the minimum wage.
We want to be free to stash our money in offshore bank accounts without consequences. We want to be free of taxation.
For the record, that's only the most extreme of libertarians, like anarcho-capitalists, for example, while the rest of us libertarians just want to keep the taxes low, and whatever taxes are not taken without any representation.
We want to be free of having to pay for the commons that we use and that we pollute. That's what libertarianism really means. Smaller government? Sure. Yeah, we don't need no stinking EPA. We don't need no stinking FDA. You think I'm exaggerating? Listen to this. This is the political platform. You can find this over on Bernie's website.
Well, that sounds completely fair, I guess. Let me go get the Democrat Party's platform from Rush Limbaugh's website.
Really? You are going to go off of the interpretation of an anti-libertarian to represent of what the beliefs of libertarians are? That is a stupid move on your part, Tom.
You would be doing yourself more favors by reading quotes from libertarians like Tom Woods and Ron Paul and Adam Koch and other libertarians to find out what the actual beliefs of libertarians are. Like, take the words right out of the horse's mouth, dude, so that you don't accidentally go off of somebody else's strawman of libertarians.
Sanders.senate.gov/Koch-brothers.
Remember how I said that the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian Party platform is not representative of all libertarian ideology? Well, the same principle applies even more so to the Koch brothers, with their support, their monetary support of many Republican politicians for one thing, and above all, their support for amnesty for illegal immigrants. I mean, there's a good portion of us libertarians like myself, for example, who are against illegal immigration and the panderings to it and amnesty, but are still for people's personal liberty, for citizens within the country on economics and so forth. Whereas we do not sympathize with the Koch brothers on immigration.
David Koch ran for vice president of the United States against Ronald Reagan on the Libertarian platform. Well, I guess he was running against George W. Bush as vice president. And here's the platform.
Even though I just said the Kochs aren't representative of all libertarian philosophy, and even though a lot of the stuff he says I find to be ideal in my book, but I'm not an idealist, I'll bite still for the sake of argument. What do you say, Loudmouth?
I'm burning for it. Literally.
We urge the repeal of federal campaign finance laws, the immediate abolition of the despotic Federal Election Commission. In other words, we want to be able to buy any damn politician we please. We favor the abolition of Medicare and Medicaid programs. In other words, you get sick, screw you, you're not a billionaire.
More like, if you're gonna abuse the public welfare system, screw you, get off my taxpayer dollar. As this Forbes article explains, that people on Medicaid use the ER 40% more than people not on any insurance. And assuming that that is actually not the fault of the Medicaid recipients, it shows still to be a sign of the inefficiency of this area of publicly funded and provided health insurance, and thus more reasoning for why it should probably be abolished. And to add insult to injury, this article from the Daily Signal tells the flaws and inefficiencies of Medicare and Medicaid. Like, for example, of how the annual cost of Medicare is currently $600 billion and is predicted to rise by $400 billion by 2023. And Medicaid is currently around $500 billion and is predicted to rise by $300 billion by the same year. This shows a real good piece of evidence as to why these programs need to be massively reformed, if not completely abolished.
And even that is really only the tip of the iceberg. Medicare and Social Security combined have bare minimum $50 trillion in unfunded liabilities over the next several decades. Simply put, these programs are completely unaffordable and unsustainable without serious reform.
We oppose any compulsory insurance or tax-supported plan to provide health services. Right. Yeah, it's a variation. You get sick, screw you. You're not a billionaire.
The first statement regarding compulsory health insurance is just flat-out authoritarianism. Be it you're forcing a company to, against their will, cover an employee of theirs, or you're talking about the individual mandate, if you are. The second part of that statement, tax-supported health insurance, to that I say, refer to earlier statement of mine.
Something about Darwin in there, right? We also favor the deregulation of the medical insurance industry. Yeah, let them stick it to you. Let them drop your policy if you get sick. Let's deregulate them. Let them totally mess with people. Because billionaires don't even need health insurance companies. They get sick enough they can buy a wing of a hospital. We also we favor the repeal of the fraudulent, virtually bankrupt, and increasingly oppressive Social Security system. Right. Let's take a $1 trillion, $2.5 trillion trust fund and give it to the big banks.
Mr. Strawman, give me a break.
Not once in that statement was the position put out that they want to give Social Security funds to banks at all. You dumbass.
Think what they can skim off the top of that. We propose the abolition of the governmental postal service. Oh my God, that agent of tyranny, the post office.
Not every single thing about the government do we oppose because of tyranny, you dumbass. With some things, we oppose them because it's a waste of taxpayer money. Like, for example, the U.S. Postal Service, which has been failing for about 11 years now, and just recently, in 2017, has suffered a loss of $2.7 billion.
The one agency, by the way, in the United States where you can send a communication and know that no one's going to read it without a court order. Google's reading your email, Microsoft's reading your email, Yahoo's reading your email. The post office is not reading your mail, unless some judge has signed a warrant.
That's a moot point, as the government is spying on us via the NSA.
We oppose all personal and corporate income taxation, including capital gains taxes. Yeah, we want to just take all the money. We don't want to have any responsibility for society. Screw society.
To me, that sounds damn near an ANCAP position right there. And last I checked, the Koch brothers were not ANCAPs themselves, so that's kind of odd. Maybe I'm wrong on that sentiment, but to argue devil's advocate for ANCAPs, because I'm not an ANCAP myself and I thus believe in some small form of taxation, does anyone really have a legal obligation to help out their fellow man? And better yet, does anyone have a natural right to someone else's help? To me, I say no. It's more of a privilege that you get other people's tax money to help you, say, on welfare.
We support the eventual repeal of all taxation. Right. Let's, what little government we need, the army or something, let's do it all with fees on consumption, right? Sales taxes.
What the ever-living fuck do you listen to yourself as you are reading a piece of paper, you dumb fuck?
That position said the eventual repeal of all taxes, so that would include the sales taxes. You idiot!
Though I think the abolition of all taxation is more of an ANCAP position than a libertarian one, I personally think it would be better to move towards a fair tax or a national sales tax as a replacement for the current income tax.
Hit the little guy. We support the, as an interim measure, all criminal and civil sanctions against tax evasion should be terminated immediately. Stop enforcing the IRS code. Right.
Again, I'm not an ANCAP, so I cannot support the absolute abolition of all tax enforcement laws and agencies, but the most that I would like done with the IRS is that the power of enforcing tax law was not so centralized. In other words, make a state-by-state type of IRS.
You get it. The average person, most people actually get money back from the IRS. I don't know if it's most people, but I think it's Mitt Romney's 47%. They either get, either they pay no federal income taxes or they actually get money back. The things like earned income child credit, things like that. Koch brothers we're going to do away with all that stuff.
But they didn't actually give them any new money. They just gave them back their own money. If somebody takes your money and then gives it back, there's no net gain to that.
We support repeal of all laws which impede the ability of a person to find employment, such as minimum wage laws. No more minimum wage laws. Hey, how'd you like to work for $3 an hour?
That seems to be working off of the assumption that every single low-skilled worker wants the government to come in and say to their business, hey, you are to pay this low-skilled worker this amount of money. When clearly, not every single low-skilled worker, some of them even, will actually want to work for a lower wage than what is currently at $7.25 an hour, that is. So that they can start low, that way that the employer is more incentivized to actually want to hire them rather than be forced to pay them a wage that they think that the employee, the plausible employee, is not even worth paying. And then they can work their way up.
In today's world of increasing automation, the minimum wage is very, very damaging to jobs. There are a huge number of low-skilled, low-wage jobs in this country that are still worth paying a human being for at a low enough wage, but are simply not worth paying and are far more efficiently moved to automation at an elevated minimum wage. Thus, you would remove millions of low-skilled workers from the workforce by raising the minimum wage.
Here, I'm going to link down below in the description box some literature that goes into deeper detail than I am right now.
End all government education. We advocate the complete separation of education and state. Government ownership, operation, regulation, and subsidy of schools and colleges should be ended. Yeah, to hell with Thomas Jefferson and the University of Virginia. Screw Abraham Lincoln and the land-grant colleges. Those guys didn't know what they were talking about. That's not how you build a great country. You build a great country by only letting rich people go to college.
And as government subsidies for college have increased, so has tuition. As more students go to college, degrees lose their value. The more people have degrees, the less having a degree means anything and the less it stands out. If everybody is special, nobody is. If everyone has a college degree, nobody does.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I asked
this
you...
is what you would have learned in college if you went.
We support the abolition of the Environmental Protection Agency. After all, our Georgia Pacific plants making paper are dumping all kinds of crap into the waterways. We'd like to dump more crap. It would be more profitable.
What would be more profitable is if the EPA did not exist to try and divert hundreds of thousands of acres worth of water from California back into the San Francisco Bay to cause California a freaking drought, dude, and costed them thousands of jobs.
Our refineries are dumping all kinds of crap into the air. We'd like to dump more crap into the air. It'd be more profitable. We support the abolition of the Department of Energy. One wonders if they realized back then that the principal thing that the Department of Energy did was build nuclear bombs.
I'm a bit confused here. How is this supposed to be an argument against libertarianism and the abolition of the Department of Energy? Like, if the Department of Energy is the source of the development of nuclear bombs, which, by the way, everybody hates nuclear bombs and ultimately wants to get rid of them, wouldn't that be a reason for getting rid of the Department of Energy? I'm confused.
We call for the dissolution of all government agencies concerned with transportation, including the Department of Transportation. Yeah, no more standards for our roads, no more standards for our railways, no more standards for our airlines. Well, just turn it all over to the billionaires. They can run it all. Right out of Galt's Gulch.
Private enterprise has nothing but the highest incentive to make sure transportation is as safe as possible. Anytime a plane crashes, anytime there's a terrorist attack, anytime a train falls off the tracks, private enterprise that works on those projects, private enterprises that run those systems will take a financial hit. They'll have increased liability. Less people will want to use those forms of transportation if they don't think it's safe. Yes, private enterprise is much better than the government at ensuring safe travel.
We demand the return of America's railroad system to private ownership. We call for the privatization of the public roads in the national highway system. Yep, turn them all into toll roads. Let the billionaires buy them, and every time you want to go to, you got to drive to work on a highway? Hey, you're going to have to pay the Koch brothers. We specifically oppose laws requiring an individual to buy or use, quote, self-protection equipment, such as safety belts, airbags, or crash helmets. Because we want so many more people to show up in the ER.
Oh, you can't be that paranoid, Tom. Do you seriously think that as soon as those regulations are done with, that everybody, just all the car manufacturers all at once, will stop putting safety belts and airbags in their vehicles?
Actually, it'll be a big boon to the privately owned hospitals now that we've done away with government health care. We advocate the abolition of the Federal Aviation Administration. Right. Let the billionaires run the skies. We advocate and they can charge whatever they want. And say United Airlines, oh, you're just carrying average working people? Your fees just went from a $100 landing slot to a $5,000 landing slot.
And if they did that, most people wouldn't be able to afford to fly, which would mean they would lose a shit ton of business, and they wouldn't sell thousands upon thousands of tickets, and their business would take a hit.
We advocate the abolition of the Food and Drug Administration. Billionaires don't have to worry about whether their food is safe. They can own their own farmland, have their own peasants working it.
The FDA has a long history of stifling the economy, cronyist plutocratic practices, corruption, and shady product approval methods that make the organization practically worthless to where you might as well let the free market handle such a task instead of this useless government bureaucracy. Abolish it.
Know that it's safe. Have their own little slaughterhouse. I mean, it's the little people, right? Food and Drug Administration, knowing that the drugs are safe. I mean, billionaires can buy their drugs from Switzerland where you know that your drugs are safe. We support an end to all subsidies for childbearing built into our present laws, including all welfare plans and the provision of tax-supported services for children. Screw children. Who needs children? We don't need no stinking kids. After all, poor people having children, it just makes more poor people.
Aren't you the type of guy who believes in global overpopulation, Tom? Why would you want them, of all things, to contribute in the sustained growth of the Earth's population?
Only billionaires should be allowed to reproduce, or at least encouraged to reproduce.
That would actually be incredibly nice, given that the number one biggest problem for Earth's ecology is the planet's ever-expanding human population and the lack of natural resources to feed, clothe, and house that many people. So in an overpopulated world, why on earth would you want to pay people to have children?
We oppose all government welfare relief projects and, quote, aid to the poor, end quote, programs. All these government programs are privacy-invading, paternalistic, demeaning, and inefficient. The proper source of help for such persons is the voluntary effort of private groups and individuals. Yes, turn poverty over to the rich people. They've always done such a good job of taking care of poor people. Haven't you noticed? Look at all those homeless people the Koch brothers let sleep on their front lawn. Oh, they don't? Well, how about the clinic that the Koch brothers are running out of the front of their mansions? For poor... Oh, they don't? The soup kitchens that they don't?
You know, funny that you actually mentioned the Koch brothers because they have actually donated $1.5 billion to humane causes, including $25 million to a hospital. Now, yes, they obviously could do more, but you're just being so over-exaggeratively pessimistic about this, Tom.
Rest in peace, David Koch.
Okay, we call for the privatization of the inland waterways and of the distribution center that brings water to industry, agriculture, and households. Yes, let's let the billionaires own our water.
While the Clean Water Act has been good in theory, the EPA has frequently abused it. Not to go after billionaires, as you call it, many middle-class and ordinary property owners have had their property declared protected wetlands by the government and taken from them with no compensation. I will leave some links to examples of this in the description.
We call for the repeal of the Occupational Safety and Health Act. Right. Workers don't need protections. We're employers. We'll protect our workers. Look at we have a long history of doing that. Don't Google Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Yeah, there've been a few problems. The Ludlow slaughter. But you can trust us now. We've become nice people. We call for the abolition of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Right, because kids should be able to swallow things that they can choke on.
What the fuck are you even... Okay, there's no way at all that you're going to completely prevent kids from putting Legos in their mouths unless you were to, confiscate those types of chokeable toys or whatever.
It'll weed out more of the poor people. Kill off their babies? I mean, sure. And we support the repeal of all state usury laws. Usury laws are laws that don't let banks rip you off by charging obscenely high interest rates. Usury is a biblical word. No, we're falling on the side of the banksters. Let's screw the average person. Billionaires don't need banksters to borrow money from. We invest money in the banks. So, poor peasants who need to borrow money, you need to borrow money for your mortgage? Hey, screw you. We're the billionaires.
You are aware, right, that misguided laws that force banks to give loans to people who can't pay them back were one of the biggest causes of the 2008 housing bubble that led to a huge market crash? Short-term memory loss.
This is the official party platform in 1980 on which David Koch ran for Vice President of the United States. Give you any clues as to what libertarianism really means?
Who knew that responding to Tom could be so freaking boring? Oh well, hey, thanks for helping me respond to this piece of crap here, Loudmouth. We should do it again sometime.
And next time that I ask, just abide by my request.
Okay. No problem, Zach. Till next time, I'm some loudmouth on the internet, and you just heard my opinion.
And to all of my subscribers, sorry that this video took for so damn long, but I'm glad to have finally got it out. And if you liked it, please hit the like button down below. And please go subscribe to Loudmouth Reviews. He's a highly underrated YouTube channel. And if you want to see more content of this caliber from my channel, well then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.